Okay, thank you all for being here. My name is Esther Crabbedam. I work at Bits of Freedom, and I'm going to tell you something about privacy and freedom in times of surveillance capitalism. But before we start, I was wondering who in this room does not have a Facebook account? I like this crowd. Last week I was at a school in Enschede, and there maybe 2 persons in the room they raised their hand. So totally different crowd. Is there someone without a Google account though? Okay. Well, it's a bit more work if you don't have a Google account. So that's good that you did that. And who is still on Twitter? And is there someone who has an Instagram account? Some of you do. Okay, then. Who used Google Maps to find this location? Okay, we'll come back to that. Yeah, no problem. So I told you my name is Esther, and I am still on Twitter. I actually love Twitter. I Twitter a lot. In my free time, I make a podcast about Game of Thrones, Een fris en vurig liedje. It's in Dutch, so only for the Dutch fans. And I'm a campaigner at Bits of Freedom. Who already knows what Bits of Freedom is and does? Oh, that's very nice. So just a recap. We fight for privacy, which is the right to silence, and freedom of communication, the right to speak on the internet, so in the digital domain. And we do this by lobbying, by researching. We have some jurists working at us who research how to make laws better. We campaign, which is my work. It's very important to bring our message to a broader public. We do strategic litigation and empowerment, so give people the tools to protect themselves and to make sure that they can be online and still have privacy, which is difficult in these days. Maybe Dutch people know us because of our campaign against the sleepwet. We also organize Big Brother Awards each year. This was a winner of the Positive Prize, the Felipe Rodriguez Award. And this is our website, which we also have in English. So if you want to know more about what we do, you can go there, bitsoffreedom.nl. But today I want to talk to you about, I want to start with this statement, which is technology is not neutral. I think that is something which more and more people agree on. But this guy, Marshall McLuhan, wrote a book about this in 1964. It's called Understanding the Media. And it explains the work of technology as an extension of man. For example, our clothes are an extension of our body. Television is an extension of our eyes. A speaker is an extension or a microphone of our the voice. And with that, he wants to explain to us that technology is also an extension of man, but it's we are not neutral. So technology is not neutral. And he explains this by a theory of figure and ground. You can see some people see 2 faces, some people see a vase, but you can't see the one without the other. And Marshall McLuhan, he actually says, everything has a figure and a ground. So it has a figure, the thing you see, the thing you recognize it by, and it has a ground, an effect or the context in which it operates. And both are depend on each other. For example, cars. You might have the idea of freedom, you can travel, the world gets closer to you because of a car. But the ground, the context is suburbs. They only can exist because we have cars. And traffic, of course. If there were no cars, there would be probably less traffic each day. The same is, you can say, for the television. The world is literally in our houses because of the television. It was a big change. But the context is that we've also become couch potatoes. So what about social media, about Facebook, Google, or LinkedIn? They have a huge impact on our lives. As we've seen here, a lot of you do not have a Facebook account or do not have it anymore, but a lot of us do use Google. I think I have not asked about LinkedIn, but I think a lot of you will be on LinkedIn. And I think I don't have time for this whole, but this is an analogy that McLuhan uses, and he actually says we should not get sucked into the whirlpool of this new technology. We should not get paralyzed by it, but we have to look to the patterns in the system and see if we can change it. So this is what I want to do a bit with you. And for that, I'm going to start with intermediation and surveillance capitalism. All our interactions today online are technologically, sorry, not a native speaker, intermediated. So what do I mean with that? Between me and you often sits Facebook or Gmail or another email client. Between you and Black Mirror sits Facebook. Between you and The Handmaid's Tale sits Amazon. And between you and Amazon sits Visa. So the model is very simple. It's you and then a virtual third party and then something else. And that means that surveillance comes for free. So this third party, which is only there to bring something or someone closer to you, can survey you, can generate information about you, data about you, because you're not really choosing to use that platform, you're choosing to do something else, like watch a series or talk to someone you want to talk to. So for these third-party companies, surveillance is like a byproduct of you wanting to do that. And if you close your eyes, really do this, and you go through your Google searches for the past month, you'll probably think of a lot of things that you did that you would maybe not share in this room with everyone. I mean, what type of information does Google know about you? Probably maybe something you thought about, you might have a disease, you're gonna put in the symptoms, or you wanna stalk an ex-girlfriend, or you were searching through job applications or jobs. A lot of time, I know I use Google for a lot of the things I would not normally, in a normal conversation, talk about with people. And then if you think about that, and the fact that more than 50% of all email starts or ends with Google, plus the fact that Google owns YouTube, they have Google Analytics, which is basically on every website. They own Google Drive, where you upload your presentations or maybe your notes to things. They have so much information. They have probably the largest database about human interactions, the things we do and we want that has ever been in a database together before. Because if a researcher would come to your house and would ask you questions about the things you want or the things you like, you wouldn't probably be as honest as you are with Google or the things Google can distract from all the things you do. So they can use, of course, this information to influence you or maybe even manipulate you. So if you use the tool and they have information about you, they can adjust the tool in a way that it fits you perfectly. And you wouldn't even know that they changed it and that maybe someone else uses the tool in another way. And for a lot of you, Google even decided which route you took coming here, for me as well. And even that is not neutral. So here's an example in how they can adjust something for you. This is where Bits of Freedom's office is. It's in Prins Eiland in Amsterdam. And if I want to go to the east of Amsterdam, and I plan that with Google Maps, I get these two routes. And they are not through the city center, actually. Not through the canals and the Prinsengracht, etc. But I've lived in Amsterdam for over 10 years, and I know that the quickest way is not one of these. So I was wondering, why is that? I don't know. Maybe they just want to make sure that tourists don't get overridden by all these cyclists. Maybe this technology just doesn't get our street system. They only think in the American blocks. I don't know. But what I do know is that sometimes there's a more political thinking behind this. You probably all know this sign. It's the Hollywood sign in LA. And as you can see, all these very big houses lie underneath this, in the valley under this sign. And all the people living in these houses, very rich, very powerful people, they don't really like the fact that tourists come there every day and they want to see the sign and they want to go get a picture with the sign, and they are parking their cars near their houses and they are coming there and they're throwing away their stuff, and they don't like it. So they tried in many, many, many ways to get these tourists to go. They want to erase the sign of Google Maps. They filed petitions. They went to the city board. They said, but there's not enough parking spaces. No, it's not good for the environment, blah, blah, blah. And what actually happened is that if you go to Google Maps, you're standing over there. You're probably... so the sign is right up that... it's maybe 100 meters from where you're standing. But if you Google the way to go there, they will send you 1 hour and a half hours away to a viewing post where you have a very nice view of the sign, but you're not at the sign. So you cannot find a route to the sign directly, even if you're standing very close to it. So if you're ever there and you see this thing, it's not true. It's just people placing it there, lobbying to get the sign of Google Maps. And it shows you that with enough influence and power, you can manipulate Google Maps, whilst a lot of us just think it gives me the quickest route and I trust on it. And it even is an explicit strategy of these organizations with your information as the new capital to survey you, to use that data and to do something with it, which either makes you addicted to the platform, which make you buy more stuff. So this thing we call surveillance capitalism now. Actually, Zuzana Zuboff, she claimed this term a couple of years ago. She wrote a big book about it, which in the beginning of 2019 was released. So it's this new theory about capitalism, that the new capital is data. And to learn more about it, we're going to do a short course. How do I become a surveillance capitalist? Because maybe you're all here and thinking, wow, that sounds good. I want to earn a lot of money. Let's do this. Okay, step 1. Collect as many data as possible. An example. You probably all recognize this. I always get very annoyed when I see this, because I know that this is a way for Google to train their artificial intelligence program, to train their algorithms. Because the algorithm thinks to know which images are a storefront. But if you click on it, you control if they predicted it right. So you're just training algorithms for Google by using a website. Maybe you want to check in somewhere or something. Which is okay, well, not amazing, but there's also this information that Google is making a deal with the American government that they can use the algorithms of Google and the AI, the artificial intelligence program, to train their drones for the military. So then it becomes a bit more political that whilst you're training the algorithm of Google, where you've never chosen to do it, but you need to do it in order to book your flight tickets for something, you're also training the drones to know which house they have to bomb in the Middle East, for example, which makes it very uncomfortable, I think. But still, very good way of Google to collect data. And they make it easy for a website to check if you're a human or a robot. And it's not that hard for you to do. Okay. Step 2. Use machine learning and data scientists to build a model that can predict behavior. So you now know a lot of information about a lot of people, and you know that on basis of the data you can know someone, well, a lot of people who saw this picture, after that they bought a Coke online. or a lot of Coke. And maybe then you can predict that 20% of the people visiting this website, seeing these pictures, will buy this product. So that's you can earn a lot of money with it, of course. And these predictions you can sell on a prediction market. And of course, the biggest prediction and the most important prediction market right now is the advertisement market, because that's where all the money is. And that's why the web right now has become one big tracking machine. Because if you track someone over a lot of websites, you know which website he visits first, how long does he stay there, what does he see, where does he go next. That's a lot of information which is very useful and very you can earn a lot of money with it. So this is one of the biggest news sites in the Netherlands. It's nu.nl. And we did a test with seeing how many tracking files there were on this website. I don't know if you want to call out a number. 200? 250? 60? Okay, it's not that bad. But it's a lot. Let's see. So you can see it over here. It took 9 minutes to download all the files. And after 9 minutes, there were 183. So it's not 1,000, but still for one new site. Yeah, to finally load all the... So probably you wouldn't have loaded all the tracking device if you've just on there for 2 minutes. And of course, if you can predict behavior, you can also try to create it. And that's where it gets really dangerous. So step 4, if you want to become a surveillance capitalist and you are evil, you can manipulate people so you get the behavior you want. Because if you learned a lot about a lot of people, you have this huge data set, you can test things, then you can maybe also predict what you need to show someone in order to get a certain kind of behavior. And that's what we've seen with the Trump election, with Brexit. Organizations using social media to give people certain parts of information, to try to manipulate them into one way or another way. Of course, there's still a lot of research about it, but we do know that social media had a large impact at people who went voting, who did not go voting. So then it gets really a big political and societal question what we want to do with these social media, and if it's okay that we that these huge platforms with more than 1 million users can manipulate us into maybe voting or maybe not voting. And here we see that this information asymmetry also is a power asymmetry, because if you have a lot of information, you can use it to manipulate or sell stuff, and this gives you a lot of power. And that limits our freedom in a sense of independence, because there's some dominant power which dominates us, and with that we are less free and less independent. And this is in the end the question about, are we living or are we being lived? So, last part, very important, what can we do? Because this is a very bleak picture, but we need, of course, a bit of positivity to see what can we do about this. So, in order to fight dominant powers, we have to organize an anti-power. This is a very important philosopher who talks about freedom and dominance. He says, we may compensate for imbalance by giving the powerless protection against the resources of the powerful, by regulating the use that the powerful make of their resources, and by giving the powerless new empowering resources of their own. We may consider the introduction of protective, regulatory, and empowering institutions. So, that should be our agenda, and I mean us as Business Freedom, but I think also maybe us as a society. The first one is protection. We've already seen steps being taken by the European Union and the Dutch government. By that is the AVG, the GDPR. It's almost, well, in 2 days, it's a year ago that the AVG was introduced in the Netherlands. And we've already seen a couple of legal changes, but we are still trying to see if it really changes the way companies think about which data they mine. Of course, after that, the big platforms like Facebook, they figured they had to do something, and they took privacy and they made it a marketing issue. So now it's like, oh no, we know we have the responsibility to protect your information, and we really, really want to do it. So here you can adjust your privacy settings. But we really see that they use it as like I said, as a marketing tool. It's not that they are rebuilding the platform or something. We actually built a toolbox, which is toolbox.bitsofreedom.nl, with a lot of ways in which you can protect yourself and help others protect themselves. But we can also decide not to use WhatsApp or Facebook anymore. For example, these kind of platforms like Signal, which is an alternative to WhatsApp, with encrypted messaging. We can all try to use more of these technologies. The second one is regulation with antitrust with data as a criteria. So we've seen this in the United States. It's a big call for Facebook to be broken up because it has a huge monopoly. Facebook is the owner of Instagram and WhatsApp, so they are bigger than all other platforms I've just mentioned together. This is something which could happen the next couple of years because the United States have a huge antitrust law, and there are voices to use that to break up this platform. And this one's very important. It's empowerment. So we have to empower ourselves, the people that are being dominated, by using more open source technology. For example, try to use Mastodon instead of Twitter. We use Mattermost instead of Slack. There's a lot of open source software available, and we should try to make all our software available for everyone. And this is something also in the category of empowerment we've built, which I want to show to you. It's called My Data Done Right. We do have the AVG, the GDPR now, but it's very difficult to do a data request. So, for example, you have to research on a website, where do I have to send this request to? What is the language I have to use? Do I have to send an email, or do I have to write a letter to which part of the organization? So we built this tool where you can access, correct, remove, or move your data. You can choose the organization where you want to do it. These are some suggestions, but we have a huge database. It's all of these volunteers, they helped us with filling this database, and we're still adding stuff. For example, every hospital in the Netherlands is part of it. We have, these are the most popular ones. People wanted to know what Albert Heijn knows about them, which is, I think, a very good question. You can click on the organization, and then we ask you your email address or your telephone, your email address or your name, which we do not store. And we write a request for you. And then you can open your email client and send the request yourself. And we can send you a reminder, because they have to respond in 6 weeks. If they have not answered yet, you can remind them. So we draft a letter as well, and we say, because of this law, I have the right to ask you this. I want it delivered in this way, etc., etc.
Because especially Facebook has offered the online means to get
yeah.
data. So don't you get back a link?
You do.
Or do you really get all the data?
No, if you do it to Facebook, they will send you an email back with a link to the tab where you can download all the data from their website. Yeah, and we're still thinking about exactly. So we're using this tool to also try to identify where these kinds of weird stuff happens, like Facebook, who does not send you all the data. I also noticed that with Snapchat, they do the same. Some organizations, they ask you to send your ID, a copy of your ID. even though you've never had to show it to make an account or something. So you give them more information to get your own information. So we want to have all these information, and maybe we're going to court to actually test which implementation of this law is the right one. If it's okay that they only send you part of the information. So we actually already we went this week. We filed a complaint about Google and Facebook, I think, still placing cookies which are not FAG compliant. So we're already trying to do that. So my data right, maybe you can play a bit with it. It's a very easy tool, and it's interesting to know what Albert Heijn knows about the groceries you do. So I want to end with this question: do you want to help with this agenda? Because I think we as Business Freedom should do it, but it's also something you can do in your own life, at your own company. And I want to thank you for your attention, because I know that's scarce in this time. And I want to explain that we can only do this work because of all our volunteers and supporters. Everything we do is because people donate to us. We're a totally independent organization. And that was what I wanted to tell you. I'm very interested to take questions if you have them. Thank you. Not everyone? Okay.
Well, I think this is very interesting. However, the people outside of this room are just like sheep. They just go where the mass is. So, interesting that you say go to Mastodon or use Signal, but when I go to the school where my children are, and I say, well, don't use that WhatsApp groups, go to what? So that's very hard.
It is hard, it is. And I think at a school, for example, raising the question about, do you know that this might not be as safe as we think it is, can be a start. So people just start thinking about it. But it will take a lot of time. We do see that a lot of people are worried about Facebook, for example, and it's growing, these worries. So it's changing a bit. I think people think a bit more about their privacy. Now we've seen all these leaks. But it's something that takes time. But I do think these little things will help. And especially if we are in this room, I think we all know a bit more about technology. And so we have to be the ones that start it. Because if we don't even do it, then the sheep, I don't know if that's... but we'll never do it. I mean, someone has to start. So, but thank you for your question. It really is hard. Are there other questions? Yes.
You advise people to cancel their Facebook account, and if yes, how do we deal with the identity theft? Because if I don't have an account on Facebook, somebody can make an account that looks like me and then steal my identity.
You don't need to have an account for that, or if you have an account, they can still do that.
That's true. Yeah. Well, but this actually points to a problem that is basically that if you have a Facebook account, you exist, and if you don't exist online or something. And we created that. I mean, I don't think I actually just wrote something about that. That stopping with Facebook sort of has become a privilege, because a lot of people need to use Facebook to find a room, for example, in the city where they want to go to college, or to sell their work, to find, as a freelancer, to find new clients, to buy tickets for an event. So we built this, Facebook built an ecosystem which offered us something we all need, but there is no alternative to do it. So I think it has become a collective problem with only a collective solution. Just saying I stop with Facebook is good for me because I don't have to be on the platform anymore and see all my friends and have FOMO and whatever. But it's not an option for everyone. So I do think we need to do something like regulate it, break it up, maybe make rules to make the behavior-based tracking and advertisement less profitable. so that in that space alternative platforms can emerge, and we have more alternatives. So you can choose to be on Facebook, but you can also choose to use another platform, and maybe they could also be interoperable, so that, for example, I can send with a Gmail account, I can send an email to someone with a live account. Maybe we should have that between platforms, that I can send messages from my new platform to someone with a Facebook account. So there are a lot of solutions to this problem that are bigger than what we individually can do, but they start, I think, with regulation, with making sure that alternatives can exist. But so this is not a direct answer to your question, and I can't answer that directly, but I think it's part of this.
Indirectly an answer, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Not so much a question, but more of a remark. The application that you were demoing about asking for the type of data that they're held in, is it possible to ask them to deliver it in paper as a photo?
It is, yes.
Because I have a really hard time processing data from digital sources, so I would really like to have a photo.
Yeah, well, I did not make a screenshot of it, but we ask you, how do you want to have this information delivered to you? So do you want it by email or do you want it in paper? And sometimes you have to send a letter on paper if you want to receive it on paper or something. But that is an option, yes. So you know this guy, Max Schrems? He's actually the one who sort of started the whole GDPR setting in motion. I think 10 years ago or something, he filed a request to Facebook before these rules were there. And he received like hundreds of pages with every post, everything he ever typed into Facebook, even all the things he typed but deleted, but they still had it. He received it on paper, and there's a picture with him with all these papers. And after that, they actually set this process in motion to make this more accessible. So, but it's possible, yeah. Yes, you had a question.
I cannot speak for everybody, but I noticed to myself that basically this whole stuff is about FOMO, fear of missing out. So I had a Facebook account, I was looking into everybody's lives and stuff like that, and at some moment I just lost the will. So
Yeah. It's distracting. It's your attention is going there, and then.
I still have a Facebook account, but I don't think I've used it for the last 2 years, and I'm fine with leaving it out there. That's fine. Let it clutter up, and that's fine. But I have 2 Google accounts. One is private and one is for business. I'm okay with that also. So yeah, but it's not like I'm really using it. I'm just using the platform per se, and I'm okay with the data that I'm sending out. It's fine that they know that I'm at this event today. That's fine. Everybody can know, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a bit. So you can, and that's also the part of not having to delete your own account to fight the system. I think that. I just thought something about it, but you are adding to the mass of data, of course, and it's also, I think, a bit of a privilege to being able to say, I don't care, they know all this stuff about me, because there are people who do have get into problems with. I didn't even go into ethnic profiling and stuff, which is because of these social media gets very easy and very tricky. So I think that's something to think about, which is not saying that you should delete your account, but I think everyone who has no issue with it saying, well, I don't care, will not make the world better.
Also on the Google Maps stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to teach Google Maps.
Uh-huh.
So I think I would have gone straight through Amsterdam
Yeah.
with Google Maps shouting at me that I need to turn around. Yeah,
Probably.
whatever.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
good. Like this is being a tech rebel, like saying, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do this, and maybe if you do it a lot of times, Google will think, oh, maybe I have to change it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, it was in the news because the government has asked the maps services, not just Google, but also the ABB,
Uh-huh.
to delete certain routes. So
Yeah.
sometimes do that.
Thank you. That could be.
One is that there's also a way to confuse the system. I know a couple of people who just go and sit in people's questions just to confuse the system.
Yeah.
I've also heard via that there must be a program around which does that for you.
Ah.
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I'm still going to inquire. But it would be surprised if it doesn't really exist.
Our director Hans, he just wrote an article on our website. It's called "Buy Tickets as a Guerrilla." So if he buys a ticket for a concert or something, he never puts in his real name or his address because he knows they're gonna send it to my email address. And then why do they need they need to send a catalogos or something to my house? I don't want that. So I think it's something we will do more in the next couple of months, to ask people to be more of a rebel online and maybe fuck with the system a bit, just to show it that we don't want to do exactly what these companies want us to do. Yes.
On the software bit, there is a browser extension, I think, for Firefox, which actually loads random web pages on the background while you're browsing around. Every time you visit the web page, it will just start up Yahoo and start browsing for furry cats or...
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really exists. But I don't know the name of the extension.
I'm gonna research that. I love it. Thanks. Yeah. Another question. I do think that helps, yes. Privacy Badger, Ghost Tree, that kind of stuff. Yes, it's something we advise people to use on our toolbox, because they can't track you anymore and then they do not get the information. So it should be something maybe that we this could be part of this regulation. Like we have the software to do it, to block the ads. Maybe it should be something every browser has as a default setting, or Google tries to do it, yeah, but in their own way. Actually, it's a bit like we don't want everyone besides Google to have information. Only we should have this information. So I don't know if that's the solution. Yes.
Just a remark on top of the one about the software. If you are loading hundreds of pages behind the page you're actually looking for, it's basically burning up the planet to save your privacy. So
Good point.
blocking the cookies is probably easier. And
Yeah.
taking the cookies out to close your session, stuff like that is probably a better solution for your privacy than burning up the planet.
Yeah, this is also the part about the figuring grounds. Like everything we do online, no one thinks. Very little people think about the environmental effects and what it does to our planet with all the servers and all the. So that's a very good remark. Like blocking all these websites probably better for the environment than just using more server stuff. Thanks. Are there, oh yes.
I think a year ago I did a presentation here where I explained that I was trying to get rid of, in this case, Adobe Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
So I implemented an extension to do that. And after that, I was then able to do internet banking.
Oh, well.
Which means that the bank was requiring that
That
they
plugin.
were using Adobe Analytics. I think all the banks in the world do that with the same company. So that's another question about that. If all the banks are using the same provider, then there is a privacy issue there.
I think so, yes.
And the prerequisite that you are able to use to allow analytics to do on your website is also wrong.
Yeah, there's actually a journalist in the United States, Kashmir Hill. She writes for Gizmodo. She did an experiment. She took 6 weeks. Each week she tried to live without one of the big tech organizations. And in the 6 weeks she went without all of them. So she she went without Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, yes, and one else, Twitter probably. And Amazon was the most difficult because she did not want to go to websites that were hosted or had a server or some connection with an organization. So she had a VPN, and it blocked everything with Amazon, which was even close to Amazon. So she could do nothing. And that's an example that, so maybe you think, oh, she's not buying stuff and she's not using her Amazon Echo thing, which she has in her house. But it's also, they have all these connections. They know a lot about you because they host these websites. And so it's very intertwined, and all this power is by these small organizations. So it's very interesting to read. She writes about it very funny. She's called Kashmir Hill. Yes? Maybe someone who has not asked a question before, yes?
Yeah, last month I saw a presentation, a TEDx presentation by a Welsh reporter for the Observer about Cambridge Analytica and their influence they had via Facebook on the Brexit election. She claimed that there were no fair elections actually because Facebook manipulated people by showing them different content.
Yeah.
But I also saw an article by a scientist who claimed that actually the Google or the Cambridge Analytica project failed because they didn't succeed in having real influence. So now I'm not sure what to think. So I was wondering what your opinion is about Brexit. Did the UK have a fair election?
Well, I think
Simple question, right?
it's a very tricky question. Like I'm a campaigner, so I'm not a technician or a lawyer or something. But I do think it's very tricky that it's so easy to show people different information, and that people use Facebook as their only way of seeing news and information. And a lot of people think that what they see is just what everyone's seeing. So my bet would be that yes, there has been influence, but if it was a fair election or not, it's too big for me to say. I think we actually we were at a hearing from the chamber, Tweede Kamer, the Dutch government, last week. It was about platforms, and Facebook's PR head of PR in the Netherlands was there, and he said no. For the European elections, we made sure that no one can send out a political advertisement from a company, from a country where they do not live. So you're like, really? And we tested it. We sent a political advertisement from here to Germany and from Germany to the Netherlands, and they were both accepted. And a lot of people commented under them, and it got boosted. Like 6,000 people saw it and interacted with it. So they try to fix it, and it's still not working. And actually it was a good action, I think, to show that Facebook has no control over this. They want to control it, but it's not working.
I don't know when you did it, but I read that for the current European elections,
Mhm.
they made an exception. So at this moment, European political organizations, they can't post advertisements on Facebook because the problem was that every European political organization has its seat in Brussels. So that means that only in Belgium they could make advertisements for political stuff.
But I think that was that you have to be checked as the political organization, and we just did it as an individual.
Okay.
So we just posted a meme about Baudet and then targeted. Actually, we did it in Germany, and then they suggested that we add nationalism and militarism. And we were like, okay, Facebook, if you suggest this, it's probably... So it's lots of weird stuff happening there. And so this is the way in which we try to be a bit of a rebel and show that, I said Facebook wants to fix it, but maybe they do not even want it because it delivers them money. We also paid for that advertisement. So I think there's time now. Yeah, thank you very much.